Hello, it's Thursday, June the 18th, and you are watching the BOTTEN KLUMM Show.
This is the live show that's bringing people together from the digital community twice a week.
Twice a week. And so, BOTTEN and I, we are both AXWAY catalysts. We're part of this amazing catalyst team AXWAY brought up, and we just took our freedom to create this show, and we are so happy, I think the 9th show now, to be here again.
Yeah.
So, and today is a very, very special day. Today we've got a guest, again, a fantastic guest. But before, Brian, can you say something about the last, make a little recap?
Yeah, we actually took a turn and talked back about transformational data with Matt Chalmers.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting because, you know, people have kind of always talked about data governance and all that stuff. And we kind of brought it right back into the picture again. And Matt had some fantastic insights. He was such a great guest.
So we're going to have on the show again to go just even deeper into it. And so
definitely.
I already announced the guest, and it's Uli Hitzel, our fellow friend and catalyst. So
hello,
welcome,
Uli.
Uli.
Hi there.
So
hi everyone. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So you are in Singapore, Asia.
I am indeed. And look at us. We are everywhere, aren't we?
Yeah. 3 catalysts, 3 continents, 1 screen.
Nicely said.
Excellent.
This is cool. So I think, Brian, you were wondering, missing a part when we are set next side by side. Usually I'm asking you a weird question that you have to answer. This is not prepared at all. And so did you miss it?
Yeah, so what is it? What is it this time?
The thing is, you won't get one weird question. You told me at some point last time we were hang out in Phoenix that you want to learn German. And since we've got 2 Germans now on the screen and you, I think it's a perfect thing to play the game Say It in German.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's a ja.
Yeah.
It's a full ja. So the idea is, I went down the stairs down, I found my luggage, and it was still packed, fully stuffed with this artificial food I wanted to bring to the keynote to Sao Paulo right before the lockdown. And so
we got canceled.
So I took something from my big box and I'm gonna show it. And Uli, I want you to say what it is in German, and you, Brian, you try to pronounce it. And whenever you do it right, you're gonna get a big applause from us. We get up to 5 points. Okay?
All right, let's do it.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thing number 1.
Okay. Das ist eine Tomatenrispe.
Das ist ein Tomatenrispe.
Hey!
Okay.
Perfect. So, thing number 2.
Okay. Das ist eine dicke Kartoffel.
Das ist eine dicke Kartoffel.
Perfect.
Oh wow. Come on.
Again.
How do you know this?
Number 3.
Okay. That's going to be difficult. Das ist ein Bund grüne Bohnen.
Das ist ein Bund grüne Bohnen.
Good. Really. Again. Really good. 3 things.
It's got to have 5 points, right?
Yeah. 3.
How am I doing?
Okay. Das ist eine spanische Zwiebel.
Das ist eine spanische Zwiebel.
Very good. Well done. So, and now something beautiful.
5 points.
4 points right now.
You know, I gotta think about this. My German's not that good anymore.
I can help you out here.
Okay. Das ist eine sehr schöne Artischocke.
Das ist eine sehr schöne Artischocke.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So, 5 points. Again, we're gonna do it every time, have a little German lesson here.
I think we're going to be
don't know.
2.5 Germans now.
Yeah, we're 2.5 Germans. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
now the rest of the show in German. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So, today, we've got a topic.
We do have a topic.
Oh yeah, remind me.
And actually, you picked this topic. Uli picked the topic. So what is the topic today, Uli?
Well, I think the topic is, are we all turning into zombies? And pardon the pun,
Oh,
but I guess
Oh,
no.
that's terrible.
That's
awful.
It's not a topic.
I wish. Oh, okay. Thanks. I got the stage.
No. That is fantastic and so highly relevant.
I wished I had come up with a pun myself, but I think I read it somewhere, and I just love it.
Yeah, so
Zombies.
what's...
Yeah, so what is it all about? I mean, the term zombie, I kind of get where that's coming from, but talk about why this is so relevant right now.
Well, I think it's so relevant because, I mean, at least in the last couple of months, we all hope this is going to change again. But everything what we do, social, work, exercising, everything seems to happen in a Zoom session, and the lines are blurring up between work, between the private time, between the real world and the internet, and it's draining. It's affecting people in a good way, right? I mean, if you are just a guy like me who sits with a MacBook on a tropical island, if you do the right thing, you make a lot of noise.
Yep.
But other people, they might not, and yeah, I think it's about that whole digital interaction that we have now, increasingly more with video, with calls, with webinars. It's all over the place.
It's a fantastic topic, and so I think what I saw is some kind. We all experienced that some shops all over the planet ran out of toilet paper, but they ran out of something completely else. I've never imagined this. I think you had the same thing because we were gearing up, so you couldn't get any video equipment anymore, no converters from HDMI to USB and all this stuff, and just for months you couldn't order it. You had made all this plan, and so we made this little prep call. Brian, you wanted to drive it into a deeper topic.
Yeah, so the journey that you had in actually taking the technology and being able to apply that and use that for yourself, and despite all of these shortages and all of this stuff, but it's still about creating experiences, right? So you talked about and especially what we do as catalysts. We were always visiting customers. We're talking at conferences, and this is a very highly interactive thing. And now we're having to do it in a totally different way. So I'm wondering what your journey was to get to the point where you've got kind of what you might call like a stack. Like, what's your stack, Jack? Like, how did you build that up, and what worked, and did you have some false starts? And I'd be really interested to know.
Oh yeah. Well, I gotta say, and we will probably talk about the social aspects and the engagement later as well. At the beginning, it was really awkward. It was really awkward because, I mean, I've done online webinars before, or events that had to be taken to the virtual stage because of some other circumstances. But you're basically just speaking into a laptop. You're not able to, see the body language that really well. Many people don't even want to go on camera. I mean, it's much better now. What's my tech stack? I mean, I must say, when we were in Phoenix a million years ago, Kai fixed me up with some tech equipment. So I bought a couple of field recorders, really good microphones. The laptop working on it at the moment. Video is still not something I've solved completely yet. So it's all about you need great light, you need a green screen. That's probably one. I think having a good audio connection, having a good internet connection, which is not a problem over here in Asia, at least in Singapore, Korea, these kind of countries. This is of course solid. The rest really is about using the tools that you have, right? And that includes, it sounds silly, but if you have a calendar invite in your inbox, reply to it within 24 hours. That's a tech stack that we already have. If somebody sends you an email, try to get your inbox clean. I know that doesn't sound very gadgety, but that's what we should do. And apart from that, again, to me, it's microphones, internet connections, maybe a good camera, and yeah, a certain hygiene in dealing with all this.
So we're gonna come back to this webinar stuff that you're currently doing and this virtual conference a little later.
Sure.
I want to ask you something about, I think we were traveling around the world like crazy, and we got stuck from one day to the other into a different world, sitting at home, and we had to work from home. So now, since we all did this and we all had to work in that way, virtually, of course, in our houses, in our homes, let's talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of working remotely. So what are your ideas? We can just hang out and talk about this for a while. Just throw ideas together.
Yes. Well, the pros and cons. There is definitely both. I love the travel. And I love taking photos. I like seeing new countries. Well, I mean, I may be a geek, but I'm also very old-fashioned. And there was almost nothing that beats face-to-face communication. Right? Cooking a meal together, right? You guys talked about surfing up digital last. This is not so easy to do online. Work from home has been.
I mean, it's probably more detail than people want to know. But we were in an Airbnb all together, you know, in February. That's all I'm going to say. No, but you know, it's just sharing that, you know, meals and being together. There's really nothing beats that for collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, for working from home has been a big difference for me, but because even if I mean, I was traveling like crazy last year. Never traveled as much globally as I have done last year. Even though I'm in Singapore, I would roam around the city, sometimes work at the office, work on site, putting up at a cafe. I mean, specifically as we write articles and posts, I get much more inspired if I'm not a big Starbucks fan, but you know what I mean, right? And now suddenly you are stuck behind your desk. You're not even supposed to leave the house. So you got to arrange the room where you have a little bit of quiet time, where you have an okay light, where the internet connection is actually better than at the bedroom, right? That kind of stuff.
Yep.
But even everything else, right? Getting used to not being able to meet your customer, your colleague, and suddenly everything has to be done virtually. It's difficult to switch off between the private time and the work time.
Yeah.
That's definitely a con. Many people will say that they have to commute less to work, so they have much more time to travel. I didn't have that, but I mean, I definitely see that we have much more access to people because almost nobody is traveling. So whenever you ping them, whatever time of day it is, they might actually be available. And so we work a lot more point to point. I've seen this increasingly more, where we're not just scheduling meetings and say, let's talk tomorrow at 10 p.m. It's like, hey, you're free now. I know you're busy, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You're just talking, stuff done. That's a definite pro. For me, very personally, I mean, I live like a 10 minutes walk from East Coast Singapore. It's not a real beach if you've seen beaches in Thailand or Australia, but it's a seaside. And I take my AirPods, take a walk almost every day in the early evening, take my calls there while I walk. And that's been a substantial increase in well, not just work-life balance, but also in the personal health and some weight. But yeah, so lots of
you got to take some time. That sounds really peaceful.
Yeah.
It sounds like you though we're already thinking about this. You talked about having gearing up, and we covered the fact that you had already been thinking about it, and before all this happened, in even February and before that, and you had also prior to that been working with another bunch of people who come from another planet, don't they?
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. You mean the Martians, right?
Yeah, the Martians.
Yeah, that's a curious thing. So we even got covered by the Straits Times, which is basically the biggest newspaper we have over here. If you do fun stuff, you get coverage for free, right? It was originally conceived as a meetup group, a face-to-face meetup group for digital natives. So people who work in global time zones, right? People who are working from home, working from a cafe, not working standard hours, but it's people who communicate, it's people who are open-minded, people who are international, who've been around, who speak multiple languages, who know how to have fun. And interestingly, that's exactly the kind of people that companies want to hire these days. So
Yeah.
the idea that we had is not just to give them structure in the day, so they don't watch Netflix in their idle time, but they're being productive together and at some point inspire each other. But and you're right, Ryan, when this whole thing started, I was of course thinking, okay, I got to buy some cameras and some microphones before stock runs out. But we were pretty, like what I said earlier, I'm the only APAC guy on our team, and I'm used, since quite some years, I'm used to sitting with my laptop somewhere and being part of a global thing. And I met some other people who are like this, so we founded the Martians. Martians.sg is the URL. But yeah, see, when this whole situation started, we thought, let's give something back to the community. So let's not do a commercial event. Let's run, and I'm not a big fan of the word webinar. Let's talk about an online meetup. So we probably the first ones in Singapore who did an online meetup about how do you stay productive, how do you stay engaged at certain time. So suddenly everybody's tasked to work from home, and so we had somebody from IDC. We had a university professor who was already giving classes over Skype, and we had an HR lady who talks about, well, the engagement factor and the compliance factor. We had 6 people in 90 minutes. So talking about the differences, right? When you have a meetup, when you have a presentation for 45 minutes, we said, an online meetup, we got to do it for 15 minutes, but even that felt very long. So everything changes in the virtual.
This is a really, really good observation, because when we are used to sit in meetings or in meetups and we've got 1.5 hour or 2 hour slots to listen to something, this is already way too long when we're sitting in the room. But I think now if we're going virtually, we have to reshape this thing completely, to reshape the time slots, to make the information more dense into the thing, make it more entertaining, to help us to stay on the screen in some way. We can introduce, maybe you haven't seen that entertainment. What is this?
Oh wow. Trauben. Das sind saftige Trauben.
Brian.
Das saftige Trauben.
Yeah.
You see, this is entertainment. You have to drop in entertainment. You have to find, I think, longer breaks than usual. What you need and all
right,
what.
Right.
So you did it. You did it a few times. So what's your main experience? How to shape something like the Martians? I've seen it. It's a great user experience. It's getting better from time to time.
You've been part of it, and it's the same. I'm a what they call consul for an expat community called Internations, where typically we run breakfast networking events. So you go to a venue, right? You have coffee, you spend 2.5 hours. People come, people go, and suddenly you're doing this over Zoom, and half an hour feels incredibly long, and it's super awkward, right? Because in Zoom you typically only have one conversation. So what do? Everybody's looking at the same person. So everything changes. So it starts with, when you run a meetup, you don't have that incentive factor of free pizza, free beer anymore. So content is even more important. I think number one. And the second part is being conscious of people's times and needs, and to take longer breaks, to be even more concise in what you want to bring across. And the third part is, I realized about this in the Martians myself. When we started going, it was really awkward. When my first invitations, breakfast network, it was so awkward. At some point, you figure out how the dynamics work in the virtual world. In Zoom, you can do breakout rooms. So at some point, you can say, I press the button, and if we have 50 participants, I create 10 rooms, and 5 people are in each room randomly assigned, and then they can have smaller conversations. At some point, they bring them back. That's another one.
I was going to ask you about like polling. So I led a roundtable discussion with 11 CIOs a couple of weeks ago, and what was really interesting to keep the thing going was the introduction of a question, and then everybody would vote. So all 11 CIOs would vote on a particular question about, what the impact on their company is, and then you talk about that, and that's a really cool way to keep the experience fresh and interactive and all the rest. Yeah.
That would have been, if we had scripted this would have been my third point, because it's the engagement. I see a lot of companies who want to do these kind of events, and at the beginning they are really, it feels awkward, and they say, let's do a webinar, because then we don't know we don't really know how many people will show up, and if they show up, they probably won't show their face. They won't ask questions. This is really, really interesting. I think the moment you make this engaging, we were running an API meetup in Australia a few weeks ago. We had, I mean, with people in the room and the live stream, we had 200 people all together. They wouldn't stop asking questions and showing their face. So if you set the right tone, and if you open up, this is. And I think the final point I want to make is, you can't possibly account for every minute of an event like this. You gotta improvise at some point and play by ear, because you never know what happens. You know, there's sound issues. Sound issues never happens on.
Never.
But there is all kinds of things that people ask questions. So you might say, you know what, I didn't think of this, but let's go into this direction. And it's just, you know, just we need to be cool and improvise and iterate.
Absolutely. And maybe I add something that just Brian and I, our task for the next day is to reshape our API program ramp up workshop to make it virtual. And so we're gonna sit in the next days or nights or whatever, we're gonna sit together virtually, of course, and shape it. And what was just, if you would give a suggestion on what to take care of if you shrink a workshop to something virtual, if you would be if you're a mentor right now,
right, where you have a limited number of people on the other side. Well, I mean, I think on the tech stack, I need advice from you, because I mean my camera is still not where it should be with and I'm sure when it comes to microphones, lights, and camera, you have it all figured out. When it comes to the engagement, it's really about, what I've seen is, of course, people look at us to be the superheroes, knowing everything, and I think I do this a couple of times as well, that I say, guys, it's not everything's going to be perfect. We're doing this together. We're learning each time. When it comes to workshops, I think well, we've done things like I just bought a stylus. So that was one of my biggest things. When I run workshops, I want to go to the whiteboard and draw something. It's nice to talk about stuff, but you know, having visuals and talk about the same thing. I use something like that's called Google Jamboard. Where I can use my iPad. You can use it in the browser. You can do it on an Android. And we collaboratively write the same whiteboard, and we can even share it in WebEx, in Teams, in Zoom. That makes a great difference. This is one of the tech tips, and everything else, of course. I mean, we are structuring a university course at the moment in Singapore, a fintech course, where typically you would have day-long classes, and we are doing this in batches, where you have a lecture of 90 minutes, and then you have hands-on exercise / office hours / done this already, and I just prepare something else for 2 hours, and then you take a long break, 2 hours, and then you come back.
So we need to have these discussions about how to shape workshops and keep the people engaged and keep them relaxed, and they have to care their home office. They have to feed their children. They have to cook food. This is the situation.
Doesn't it? It mirrors what we talk about when we talk with customers about digital products and services, and you know, it's this notion that the focus was always on provision. It was always on what I do to get this stuff out there. But what we're all talking about now is you're focusing on the person who's actually having the experience, the consumer, right? And kind of putting yourself in their shoes. And it's funny how this is really pushing this along. And I don't think it's going to go back. I think now that we've had the light, you know, shined upon it, I think people will now put that first. I think.
So many. I mean, people had this joke already. Who was your biggest impact, biggest influencer for the digital transformation? And the answer is this unfortunate health situation that we have at the moment, right? Where people for years say, you know, we got to do working from home a little more, and now at least in Singapore, it's a requirement. If you're not an essential service and you can't have your employees work from home, you got to shut down. Right? So that's a fundamental change. So we got to accommodate the business factors, the social factors, and the emotional, personal thing all at once. And even if we come back to some sort of normal, I think we will see the benefits and bring the best parts. I mean, we can now hire people that are in the same time zone. They don't have to go to the same office in the expensive city, and everybody wins. It's just one of the examples, right?
And so, Uli, you were mentioning Asia and Singapore, and I think when we were all together in Colombo and Sri Lanka with Suresh Surendaran, we were saying there are so many Asias. And then I think, do you remember this book?
Yes, I do. You had it in our Airbnb in Phoenix, right?
Exactly. And so it's titled "The Future is Asian." And the future is Asian. If we're looking, if I'm listening to you. I'm starting with you in the morning, so with Singapore, and we're ending late at night with Brian. So we're spanning the globe. And so what I'm perceiving is that Asia is already is even more willing to adopt to new things, to try playful things, and I think they're already there regarding the mindset. And the Western world, us, we don't look there, and I think we always thinking we are spearheading there. I think this is not right anymore. If I'm listening to you, can you say something about this?
Well, yeah. When I think of, and I live here since almost 10 years, when I think about Asia, for me, it's all about the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, we have a lot of old-fashioned stuff, which I appreciate. So there is a lot of hand-cooked food,
mm-hmm.
That's not industrial mass production. There is a lot of live music, for example. For example, if I lived in Munich, if I have 1 hour, it's not enough to spend a lunch break at the restaurant. Not enough. Over here, in 20 minutes, 25, I can have a proper meal at a proper restaurant. If I travel to Thailand a lot, and I can have for $200, I can have a suit tailored, and the guy will bring it to my hotel the next day. So not in 2 weeks, not in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that speed is an incredible factor. Of course, it's a two side. How do they say? It's a sword with two sides, right? If you're on the delivery side, you say, "Sorry, I have my weekend now." That's also a little tough sometimes. But there is the commitment, there is the speed, and there is that, like you mentioned, that playfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has at least one mobile phone, and you can go to the poorest countries and still, not everywhere, of course, but there is people where you buy prawns, fresh prawns,
mm-hmm.
for really incredible, and you pay using a QR code, right? So the and plus, not in all the countries, of course, but we have incredible internet speeds, and it may have been because we skipped over
mm-hmm.
a few steps in the evolution, right? We started later, so we didn't, mm-hmm. at some point we didn't have the middle age. We jumped from Stone Age right into the future, and we had new networks and that overall, that competitiveness, even within countries in Asia where everybody wants to be the best and the first, and Singapore, where it takes 2 weeks to build an app that does contact tracing and Bluetooth enabled.
Crazy.
It's just,
so
that's the whole story.
Uli, give us just one sentence, condensed to one sentence. What can we learn from Asia?
Can we learn from Asia? Experimentation, speed, and not trying to be complacent and just really being at the forefront of everything and trying to be the best, wanting to be the best, I think.
Okay, I'm pushing so hard because we are running into our last minute.
Oh wow, that went really fast.
It always does.
Time is flying. And so, what are we asking as the last question always? Uli?
What's for lunch?
What's for lunch? It's what is your next big thing?
Oh, okay. My next big thing. I mentioned that briefly. I get to teach a course about fintech at the National University here in Singapore. It's APIs, it's automation, it's DevOps, it's front-end, back-end development and integration with a huge number of students, and it's also a first for me, and I'm pretty excited about this.
So,
wow, that's exciting.
When you were talking about it, I saw your eyes glowing because it's something being engaged with students. I think this is something that really, you really love.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, they'll be even more open to what you said, the experimentation and the playfulness. So I think that's a great combination.
And
a great thing for you.
I learn a lot from this, right? If you have to present a topic, if you have to work with an audience, it's also something in for me, right? That I get to say, I've done this. I've led a course and I've got the experience, and now I'm ready for the next level.
So well perfect. Brian, you had this amazing slogan at the beginning that you brought up. Well, just say it one more time. 3 catalysts, 3 continents, 1 screen. So this is you can't. This is the best end we ever had. It's just we are on 3 continents and we are still on the same day, right? We've got still the same date.
It is, yeah. It's 11:30 p.m. over here.
Okay, so it's time for you to go to bed, and thank you for keeping up at this time and just be on our show. We're gonna talk tomorrow morning. I'm just say thanks.
Yeah, Bukichi.
Bukichi.
Yeah, that's your. Yeah, Bukichi.
We're gonna talk about Bukichi later. Okay.
We'll do the lesson next time, and
so
a different language.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And
thanks, Uli.
The Tuesday show will now permanently move to Monday. So we've got our show at the same time on Monday and on Thursday, and we'll have amazing guests next week. So bye to everyone. Subscribe to our channels. Talk about us. Spread the love.
Tell your friends.
See you on Monday. Thank you. Thank you, Uli. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, guys. See ya.